Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. Now we've covered heaps of different Aorus panels on the channel, but Gigabyte has started making some Gigabyte branded panels that are a little bit cheaper and still sport most of the features that their Aorus counterparts do. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the brand new Gigabyte 31.5 inch curved panel, the Gigabyte G32QC. It's a 165Hz high refresh rate 1440p gaming monitor that features FreeSync Premium Pro and is also G-Sync compatible too. So let's see how it goes. I've been using this monitor for about 2 weeks to play games on in my office on this setup that you're seeing here, and I've really given it a good run to see if it's any good for gaming. And when I'm not streaming over in the other setup that you see if you follow us on Twitch, there's a link in the description, I play games right here on this setup. And the monitor that I usually use is actually a pretty similar spec to the Gigabyte G32QC, and it's also a 31.5 inch 1440p panel. And with that said, let's kick off this video by talking a little bit about the numbers and the stats for those people who want to know. It features a 31.5 inch VA panel with a resolution of 2560 by 1440 with a peak brightness of 350 nits. It also features a 165Hz refresh rate. Now, 165Hz is basically and quite slowly becoming the new de facto standard for all 1440p gaming monitors. It features a curved display with a 1500R curve and a response time of 1 millisecond. It also features AMD's FreeSync Premium Pro adaptive sync technology, and although it's not NVIDIA G-Sync certified, it does work with G-Sync without any issues. And I did test this for an extended period of time and it worked really, really well. The G32QC is an 8-bit panel and supports 124% of the sRGB color space and 94% of the DCI-P3 color space, and again, I think this is pretty decent for a VA panel. The G32QC has a 178-degree wide viewing angle with a 3000:1 contrast ratio as well. It's got two HDMI 2.0 ports as well as a DisplayPort 1.2 port and two USB 3.0 ports on a USB hub. There's no speakers, but it does have a headphone jack. Okay, let's get this out of the way because it's a gaming monitor and we always get this question, but people always want to know if it's good for content creation. Now, it doesn't have the most accurate colors, and at first glance, it's kind of somewhere in the middle of good and average. Its out-of-the-box calibration for a gaming monitor is pretty decent, but the G32QC isn't a monitor I would recommend for content creators. Although the colors are fairly decent, they do look pretty good, but I think it's more about the resolution and the size, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. Now, the build quality is pretty good and you shouldn't have any issues with it. It doesn't have any gamery aspects to it at all, which is actually quite a nice change. It kind of flies under the radar in the looks department, and that's actually something I can really get behind. And at first glance, you wouldn't even put this monitor in the gaming category at all, which again earns some bonus points for me. And it's got this zero bezel design with a matte screen surface, and the stand is fully height and tilt adjustable. You don't need rotation adjustment on a curved panel, but swivel adjustment kind of would have been nice, but at the same time, it's not a deal breaker because I guess you're not really gonna be swiveling a 32-inch monitor, it's just too big. The G32QC has a little built-in nub-style joystick on the back of the screen for the menu system, and it's really easy to use, and everything is super easy to understand, except for the fact that you don't actually need to use any of it because just like the Aorus panels, everything can be controlled in the OSD Sidekick software. And when I say everything, I literally mean everything you can imagine. You can enable the crosshairs and draw stupid little rocket-shaped things like I usually do in these videos. You can change the brightness, the contrast, the picture-in-picture. You can do absolutely everything in the software. Now, the only reason why I think they even have a menu joystick on the back is for the people who use macOS or Linux, and I've mentioned this before. And this is basically something that Gigabyte needs to do. They need to make macOS and Linux versions of their software, which will basically probably never ever happen, but yeah, one can dream, and yeah, maybe one day we can have really nice things on Linux. But until then, you just got to use the little nub style joystick on the back. And in regards to adaptive sync, we didn't encounter any issues with this display using both FreeSync and G-Sync, and I'm actually pretty impressed with the implementation here, and I'm happy that we don't have to talk about this anymore. Adaptive sync has almost become a non-issue because it's all pretty compatible, and that again is something I can really get behind because yeah, it's not a discussion we'd really need to have anymore. And I'm gonna go a little bit off topic here, and I'm gonna talk about G-Sync and FreeSync and all that because a vast majority of these panels that aren't certified actually work with G-Sync no problem. And yeah, I didn't have any issues with it. And I think I've only ever encountered one panel that gave me problems, and it's the panel that I usually use here. And it's also the 32-inch curved 1440p panel that I use that actually costs far more than this Gigabyte panel. Why don't you work with G-Sync? It's so frustrating. It always stops working and does weird stuff. This Gigabyte one does it. Why can't you do it? And why don't you have a VESA mount? And this kind of leads me into the next thing with the adaptive sync and the G32QC. It features AMD's FreeSync Premium Pro, and yeah, I know that sounds kind of like monitor DLC, but the truth is the new FreeSync standard is used to support high refresh rate and HDR gaming. Now this panel is HDR 400 certified, but it's only 350 nits, so it doesn't feel quite bright enough for decent HDR. And I did test it, and it didn't wow me enough to actually talk about it, so I'm not gonna bother. And I'm gonna level with you as well. I know a lot of people disagree with me, but with these HDR certified monitors, most people don't even use HDR because the technology and like the operating system implementation, or at least from Windows, it just isn't that good, and it'll probably change in the future for sure. But yeah, don't buy this panel if you want to be wowed by its HDR prowess, because it's just not that good at HDR, and that's a fact. And to be very honest, there's only one thing other than the HDR that I don't like about this panel. It's the power brick. Okay, this is like a complete first world problem. Vendors I've noticed recently, they've been not including integrated power supplies in any panel that exceeds basically 27 inches. And it's probably to save some weight if you're gonna VESA mount it. And it's okay. It's not a huge issue, but they decide to use non-standard 19-volt power supply bricks, and it's kind of annoying to cable manage. And not only that, all of these power bricks have different plugs, so they're not even interchangeable. And again, like, it sounds like a massive first world problem, but they could have easily have integrated the power brick into the monitor or given it a standard power connector. And I also noticed something that tricked my brain as well with this monitor. You can actually see the pixel array on the panel if you look closely, especially at my regular viewing distance, which you can tell like isn't really that far away. And it's really noticeable on 32-inch panels. However, on my BenQ panel, which is basically almost the same except the lower refresh rate, I don't notice the issue. And you have to look really closely to notice it, but I did notice it. It's honestly not really a deal breaker, and it's kind of something that's hard to capture on camera, but it does exist if you're really looking for it. And for some reason I noticed it, where it's usually something that I won't really take notice of. Anyway, for gaming, I actually really like the G32QC because of the size. I'm a sucker for all of these stupidly big monitors and sitting dangerously close to huge curved panels for immersion. I really like playing on it, and there's a couple reasons why. The first reason is it's 1440p, and at this size it's kind of nice and it's affordable and it's easier to push higher frame rates, so it ups that immersion. And 1440p might seem a little bit low for a monitor of this size and whatever, but it actually isn't too bad. And I know it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, whatever. It's such a huge screen, and I'm just used to it. I've been using my BenQ panel for like 2 years, and to use something smaller to game with in my office, it just feels weird. And there's also another reason why I like this monitor, and it's actually a pretty stupid reason to like a monitor other than its huge size. It's something that BenQ's been trying to forget for the last few years. It's got VESA mounting. Yes, VESA mounting. And I know that sounds like it's a nothing thing, but the G32QC has standard 100mm VESA mounting, and it might seem like a stupid thing at first, but I've been finding lately that vendors who are making these bigger panels don't include any VESA mounting, and you have to use their included stand. And if they do, it comes in a kit, and the kit's impossible to get, and it's really expensive. So yeah, that's my my take on that. Anyway, if you're interested in grabbing the Gigabyte G32QC, QC, it's one of the two. It's going for around $369 US, or around $599 at the time of filming this video. And to be honest, you're actually getting quite a bit of monitor for that price, and I know it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I'm used to 32-inch monitors, so it's really hard for me to use something else when I'm gaming, although I do use another 27-inch curved panel when I'm streaming. That's fine, but when I'm actually like sitting down to game and kind of lose myself in a virtual world, I like using 32-inch panels. Anyway, if you've got any questions about this monitor or anything I mentioned in the video, feel free to drop a comment down below. Let us know what you think about 32-inch 1440p curved monitors. I personally think they're pretty excellent. Like I said a million times in this video, I've been using one for about 2 years. Why don't you also have a VESA mount? Fix this, or make it easy to get the adapter kit. They're probably too big for most people though, so yeah. Anyway, and I also wanted to add that with our monitor content, I just like to keep it nice and easy to digest in a nice and easy format for people who might not understand everything about monitors and what everything means, and I just like to talk about stuff that a regular user will actually find useful, and we'll leave all those decisions about all this stuff up to you guys, and yeah, we'll just keep it simple. Not everyone here is an expert, and that's kind of what we're here for, to make it easier for you to understand. And if you guys like this video, please consider subscribing, hitting the like button, doing all the other stuff like the join button, or getting early access to videos like this one over on Floatplane. If you didn't like this video, you know what to do. Tell us what you hated about it. Hit the dislike button twice, and all that jazz. Once again, thank you so very much for watching. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peek, we seek. And I probably added a clip in this video about the BenQ monitor that I usually use, but I'll just show you really quickly, or this is going to be stupidly awkward. Oh, this is probably a terrible idea, but here it is sitting off to the side. This is the one I've been using for about 2 years. Look, it basically just like blanks me out of the frame altogether. But yes, I do actually use a massive monitor like this usually. And the thing I really dislike about this monitor, there's no VESA mounting. Yes, and they do make a kit, but it's absolutely impossible to find. I've been trying to find it for 2 years. And I can't, and I don't have a 3D printer, and everyone that says to 3D print like the VESA mount for it says that do so at your own peril, which I can agree to. Thanks for watching.